Tensions continue to escalate in the last rebel-held region of Idlib in Syria. The Syrian government and its closest ally Russia has intensified its assaults in the last few months in order to regain power from the rebel forces. But now we have a new ground player in this geopolitical war, and that is Turkey. Just 2 days ago, President Erdogan had sent Turkish troops to Idlib to bolster the government forces stationed at the posts. In an expected clash, Turkish military has killed at least 76 Syrian soldiers and targeted 54 targets in Idlib. This came as a retaliatory action to shelling conducted by Syrian troops that killed 8 Turkish military personnel. Now Russia is claiming that the Turkish units came under fire from Syrian government forces because they moved without notifying Moscow. But a contradictory claim has been made by Turkey. Ankara says that it had coordinated its military movements with Moscow.
Son olayla alakalı olarak da intikalimiz bir gün öncesinde, yani dün saat 16:13'te ve yine tekraren teyiden saat 22:27'de buradaki ilgili arkadaşlarımız tarafından Rusya tarafındaki karargahtaki ilgili Rus personele bildirildi.
Now, what complicates the Syrian crisis even more is that if Turkey chooses to fight Bashar al-Assad's troops, Ankara is also provoking Syria's all-weather ally, Russia. Remember, Erdogan and Putin are closely working on an S-400 air defense deal and energy deals, making the Idlib fighting a depressing sideshow to the real agenda of Moscow and Ankara. As of now, the Turkish president has made it clear that if Turkish personnel are targeted, the Syrian government will have to pay the necessary price.
Ve bu hava saldırısı neticesinde de 3'ü sivil olmak üzere 8 kişi, 5'i de asker şehit oldu. Tabii artık dedik ki olacak gibi değil ve karşı bu noktada cevaplar verildi. Şu anda kesinlikle biz de bu noktada gerek hava gerek kara olmak üzere yoğun bir şekilde bunlara gerekenleri yapıyoruz. Gereken bedelleri ödetiyoruz ve ödetmeye de devam edeceğiz.
Turkey, which has already taken around 3.5 million Syrian refugees, fears another influx from renewed violence in Idlib could be expected. Hundreds of thousands of people have already been displaced in the region, while many of them have fled towards the Turkey-Syria border. Erdogan has previously also said that Turkey was building homes on the Syrian side of the border to shelter those fleeing the violence. Now, we are being joined by Professor Muzaffar Senel live from Istanbul, Turkey. Now, Muzaffar is a professor in Department of Political Science and International Relations of Istanbul Sehir University. Now, welcome to WION, Professor. It's a massive spike in violence. We've seen Syria attacked and killed 8 Turkish personnel. That's what Erdogan is claiming. In retaliatory action, 76 Syrians have been killed. Now, what's the main reason? Russia says that it's because Turkey failed to inform Moscow of its troop movements. What's the stand of the Turkish government?
Actually, as in your VTR is also explaining that there is a, I think, misunderstanding in terms of the communication, because while Turkey is saying that 2 times that informed Russia about the Turkish deployment to the northern Syria, because it is all about the Astana process, and that, as you know, that since 2017 that Astana process is going, and then Turkey, Iran, and Russia has agreed on the ceasefire in Idlib area to stop the human catastrophe over there, and therefore that this is a message, I think, so for Turkey, from Syrian regime and Russia to Turkey, to say it will come. The Astana process is come to an end. Astana process has that. So another process is Sochi process between Turkey and Russia is going to be an end. Therefore, Turkey, I mean, this is a force. Russia is forcing Turkey, I think, so trying to force Turkey to bring Turkey to confrontation with the Assad regime and force Turkey to sit on the table with the Assad. Most probably, the Russian plan is that, but the Turkish plan is we will say 3 points. The first one is Turkey may follow a policy that increase the cost of Russia in the region. That most probably this will be the more expected. The secondly, that Turkey may follow the more closer relations with West again, as in the case of Turkey, still the member of the NATO, and the NATO between Turkey and America. There was in 3 months ago there was about the Turkish peace operation. Peace spring operation that Mike Pompeo and the Turkish counterparts signed an agreement, and they reconfirmed the Turkish border security, which were confirmed by NATO and the United States. Therefore, Turkey will more closer to the West than Russia now. It's going to be more expected as of today, since all these ceasefire or peace efforts come to an end. Turkey will force Russia and Syria to show that the diplomacy table still is alive, and then Turkey will seek more for diplomatic efforts to end the human catastrophe. Since, as you said, as in your VTR is also clearly pointed out, that if the Assad regime will start to control the Idlib, more than 700,000 people will flow to Turkey, and then this is another wave of the refugee flow to Turkey, and which will be the more costly, and most probably many of them will die in this let's say to the flow.
Right. Now, Russia has close ties with the Assad regime, and we just told our viewers Russia and Turkey are also working on a defense deal. They have defense ties earlier. Meanwhile, there are reports that Turkey used F-16 fighter jets, bombed around 50 locations in Idlib in a massive retaliation to this attack on their soldiers. United Nations has called for an immediate de-escalation. What is the stand of the Turkish leadership on that?
I mean, Turkey is not looking for the escalation of this confrontation, and the Turkey, as in the let's say the foreign ministry or presidential office pointed out to that the Turkey will just to control, to let's say to secure and safety its military and its people, citizens. Staying in Idlib area due to the agreement between Turkey and Russia and Iran that in accordance with the ceasefire had already been signed among them. Therefore, now these military plots of Turkey is, there is an agreement between Turkey and Russia. Therefore, the Turkish, let's say, the soldiers is over there on the basis of this agreement. And maybe they will change to that the ceasefire come to an end, and the United Nations will force the Assad regime to stop the human catastrophe, which will be the more important than the Turkish efforts over there.
Absolutely. Now, there is certainly a power game to control this region, isn't it? 3 players now, Syria, Turkey, Russia. But what about the humanitarian cost of this clashes? The humanitarian crisis is surely going to increase.
It's going to be more increased than as you know that till now more than 3 million people will die over there. How many people will die? This is like after the Second World War. This is the biggest catastrophe, going to be the biggest catastrophe, and then this escalation, which will not be acceptable, and then only the civilians are dying. And therefore, we should stop to this human catastrophe. We should stop to this. This is a crimes against humanity, which will be going on if Assad starts to control the Idlib. We should underline to that crimes against humanity that the Assad is using the barrels, the bombs of barrels, and the many chemical weapons in Syria, in the Idlib area. They were in the previous his attacks. He used the barrels, or he used the chemical weapons, biological weapons, and it should be stopped. Humanitarian, the United Nations Security Council should decide to intervene in the Syrian crisis as a humanitarian intervention. We should stop this regime attacks to the civilians. This is a crimes against humanity.
Right, Professor, I'd like to thank you so much for joining us on WION.